So, Governor, do you recognize this picture?
I do recognize the picture.
Briefly describe it to us. What is it? What's going on?
These were folks, I believe the people in the picture now are incarcerated in Minnesota.
It's a
to the
precinct
best of
3
my
burning down because of your decision. Was this a peaceful protest? Was this a peaceful protest?
The gentleman standing there?
Was this a peaceful protest?
It was a criminal act that people were prosecuted for.
So it wasn't a peaceful protest, right? As I watched lawlessness devastate Los Angeles this past week, I was reminded of your failure to protect Minnesota from similar riots. Governor Walz, on May 29th of 2020, during your own press conference, you described your response to the riots during the 2020 Summer of Love as, quote, an abject failure. Governor, I couldn't agree with you more.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Hot News Today, where we break down the moments the mainstream media runs from. And wow, this hearing? This might be one of the most explosive exchanges we've seen in Congress all year. Representative Pete Stauber came in ready, prepared, and absolutely unwilling to let Governor Tim Walz dodge accountability. From the riots to immigration enforcement to that wild Gestapo comment, Pete Stauber went straight for the facts and didn't let Governor Walz wiggle out of anything. And honestly, watching this made me appreciate even more when a representative stands up unapologetically for law enforcement, for veterans, and for the safety of Americans. Pete Stauber didn't raise his voice. He raised the truth. Before we jump into the full reaction, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any breakdowns from Hot News Today. All right, let's get into this.
One from the National Immigration Center.
Without objection, so ordered.
National Immigrant Justice Center and the Alliance for Immigrants.
Without objection, so ordered.
They speak for themselves.
Chair recognizes Mr. Stauber from Minnesota.
Thank you very much. Governor Walz, thanks for being here today. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I ask you to keep your remarks brief. I got a lot to go through. As you know, I spent 23 years as a law enforcement officer in the state of Minnesota. You know that, right? Do you know that, yes or no?
I don't know how many. It's
not a trick question.
I don't know
I'll
how many
answer it for you.
years.
23 years in Duluth.
Thank you for that.
So, Governor, do you recognize this picture?
I do recognize the picture.
Briefly describe it to us. What is it? What's going on?
These were folks, I believe the people in the picture now are incarcerated in Minnesota.
It's a
to the
precinct
best of
3
my
burning down because of your decision. Was this a peaceful protest? Was this a peaceful protest?
The gentleman standing there?
Was this a peaceful protest?
It was a criminal act that people were prosecuted for.
So it wasn't a peaceful protest, right? As I watched lawlessness devastate Los Angeles this past week, I was reminded of your failure to protect Minnesota from similar riots. Governor Walz, on May 29th of 2020, during your own press conference, you described your response to the riots during the 2020 Summer of Love as, quote, an abject failure. Governor, I couldn't agree with you more.
That's out of context.
And on May 17th, 2025, you were at the law school, graduating Minnesota Law School, talking to the graduates. And we've talked about this. You called the enforcement of illegal immigrants a modern-day Gestapo. You've been asked 3-4 times if you would rescind that, and you won't. Will you rescind it? This is like the 5th time, yes or no?
Congressman, I was talking to law students about due process, and I said
you
took an oath to due process.
Governor, was there a violent al-Shabaab terrorist who entered our country illegally arrested in Minneapolis last year? Yes, there was. Were there 3 illegal child predators arrested by ICE in St. Paul earlier this year?
I certainly hope so. That's their job.
Yes, there was. Are the officers who arrested the al-Shabaab terrorists or the child predators, are they Nazis or the Gestapo?
The tactics of wearing
They're
masks.
not.
The tactics of wearing masks.
Why did you tell us that they were the Gestapo? Do you believe that any of the violent illegal immigrants I have mentioned have a right to be in this country?
I don't know what their immigration status was.
They're illegal, violent criminals that ICE took off the streets of Minneapolis.
You did not say,
Last week,
Congressman, what their status
Governor,
was.
last week, law enforcement officers in the state of Minnesota took 900 pounds of meth off the streets. Do you support that?
We certainly do.
Do you know that
Fentanyl,
ICE?
other
Do you know that ICE assisted in that arrest, those arrests and investigations? Do you support the assistance of ICE in that enforcement action? Yes or no?
I can't speak to that because we were not included in the briefing.
You don't know if ICE was part of it? I'm telling you, they were.
I don't have that data. I would have to trust you.
Will you apologize to our constituents and law enforcement officers for making them and their families less safe with your incendiary actions?
I'll congratulate them that they helped us work on the largest pension bill for
Governor.
Minnesota law enforcement in
Governor.
30 years.
Claiming my time. Governor, what weapons did you carry in war?
Congressman, for 24 years, I carried.
No. What weapons did you carry in war?
What did you carry in
What did?
uniform?
I
You
tell
know
you
I
what, Governor,
misspoke.
you're
You know I
barking down the
misspoke.
wrong tree, okay?
You know I
You
misspoke.
lied to the Minnesotans. You said that you carried weapons in war.
Mr.
That
Chairman.
is stolen valor. You know
My-
what? My wife
Yeah,
served
Mr.
24
Chairman,
years
I
in the
reckon-
a little bit of
military,
respect for the
and
witness.
she's an Iraq war veteran.
You know what I mean?
She was
This
over in
hectoring is
the
not-
war
not-
zone. That's
On
stolen
a point of-
valor, and I'm so
Point of order,
disgusted with
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
And so are the people that you served
Point
with.
of order.
Point of order.
That's stolen
Halt
valor.
just a minute. State
Stolen
point.
valor.
Mr.
You didn't
Chairman,
carry weapons
that's
in
not questioning
war.
the witness.
Congressman, my 24 years was
That's not
public for
Will you
many, many
apologize
years.
for lying?
Objection.
Will you
No, I misspoke.
apologize for lying?
Objection.
All right. Hold on. Pause.
That's not questioning a witness. That's not questioning a witness. You
The
think
point of
so,
order.
huh?
State your point, Mr. Rinkelmann.
No, you're
State
yelling
your
at him.
point.
You're
There we
hectoring.
go.
You're hectoring. You're hectoring.
right.
You're hectoring.
State your
Governor,
point.
you didn't carry
That's
weapons
not-
in war, did you?
State your point.
You didn't
Proceed.
carry
You
weapons
got
in war.
24 seconds.
Did you?
Congressman, you know I
didn't carry
misspoke.
weapons in war, yes or no?
you.
You lied. Governor, what rank did you retire at? What rank did you retire at?
Congressman, I served my battalion as the command sergeant major.
That's not the
and
question
for
I
pay-
asked. What rank did you retire at?
I retired as a master sergeant in
Okay,
EA.
here's your coin that says you're retired at a command sergeant major. That's
Says
your
I wore
challenge
that.
coin.
It
This
says
is-
I wore the rank.
This is that's right. You didn't retire, did you?
I did
Stolen
retire after
valor.
24 years.
Here is a picture of your coin, your challenge
Jesus
coin.
Christ.
I'm disgusted with you. I'm just.
Mr.
Governor,
Chairman, the
you
time
lie
has
when the
expired.
truth-
Congressman,
you lie
I'm-
when the
Gentleman's
truth is
time's
better.
expired.
You called half Trump supporters Nazis and fascists, and you know what? That's why the Minnesota Police and Peace Association did not support you in the last election because
Well, I
you're missing
support
in
them.
action.
Gentleman's time's expired.
On behalf of the folks from the land of rocks and cows, thank you. Now you go back.
Chair recognizes Ms. Tenney from New York.
Okay, after watching that full exchange, let me just say it plainly. Pete Stauber absolutely owned that hearing, and not with theatrics, but with precision, facts, and courage. From the moment Pete Stauber started, you could tell he wasn't there to play games. Stauber laid out Governor Walz's record clearly. Riots that spiraled out of control, statements comparing immigration enforcement to the Gestapo, and a refusal to take responsibility. Pete Stauber didn't let Governor Walz brush any of that under the rug. And the best part? Stauber kept the hearing grounded in what matters, public safety. When Pete Stauber asked Governor Walz about the riots, Stauber didn't let Governor Walz dance around whether they were peaceful or not. Stauber forced Governor Walz to admit that what happened was criminal. That matters. Minnesota lived through chaos, and finally someone confronted Governor Walz directly about it. Then came the immigration portion, and Pete Stauber was on fire. Pete Stauber brought up the Al-Shabaab terrorist arrested in Minneapolis, the child predators taken in by ICE, and a huge meth bust that saved Minnesotans from unimaginable harm. Stauber kept asking the same simple question. Do you support ICE doing its job? And Governor Walz dodged, hesitated, deflected. You could feel Pete Stauber's frustration because Pete Stauber wasn't speaking for himself. Pete Stauber was speaking for every law enforcement officer who risks everything to keep our communities safe. Pete Stauber was speaking for the victims who don't get second chances when politicians weaken enforcement. And then the stolen valor moment. Phew, That was the point where the room froze. Pete Stauber called out Governor Walz directly on whether he misrepresented carrying weapons in war and on the rank he claimed. That wasn't political. That was personal for veterans, for families of service members, and for people like Stauber's own wife who actually serve in a war zone. Say what you want, but that took guts. And Pete Stauber didn't back down. While others were shouting point-order interruptions, Stauber stayed locked in. Governor Walz had every chance to answer clearly, and instead gave roundabout responses. Stauber just kept pushing. Yes or no? That's accountability. That's leadership. And by the end, Pete Stauber delivered one of the hardest-hitting closings I've seen in a hearing, calling out Governor Walz's rhetoric about half of Trump supporters being Nazis and fascists, and reminding everyone why law enforcement groups refuse to endorse Walz. Pete Stauber brought the whole thing full circle. Actions have consequences, and words matter. My final take, this was Pete Stauber doing exactly what a representative should do, standing up for truth, for law enforcement, for veterans, and for public safety. No apologies, no soft pedaling, just straight accountability. If Congress had more people willing to challenge power the way Pete Stauber did today, this country would look very different and a whole lot safer. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did Pete Stauber go too hard? Or did he do exactly what needed to be done?